following program contains graphic audio images of the supernatural and scenarios depicting paranormal activity that some listeners may find disturbing. Views expressed in the program are solely those of the presenter and do not in any way reflect the opinions, beliefs, or policies of Talk Radio.
Untwist the lid on Talk Radio's specimen jar of the psychic, the supernatural, and the simply unexplainable. The Unexplained with Howard Hughes on Talk Radio.
A drama documentary that is premiering at the Raindance Festival exactly a week today. It's a unique take on crop circles. Last week we talked to a guy in Tasmania about the Australian experience of crop circles. This, though, is a take on the crop circle phenomenon that I've never heard before. The news release, I can quote you a little from it. It says, "I know this will annoy many people, those who think that all crop circle formations are made by aliens and those who think it's vandalism, but there is something much more important going on," states co-director Jonnie Hurn, who was born and raised in Wiltshire, just a few miles from a place called Honey Street. He's here right now. Jonnie, thanks very much for coming in.
Good evening.
It's good of you to do this. Crop circles, most of us have seen on television, film shot by so-called undercover camera crews, showing a couple of guys who've clearly had a few beers or something else, getting out with the motor mower and with some boards and pressing down the crops and having a good laugh at our expense. There are other people who will say that spaceships land in the middle of the night and suddenly imprint these things. So, bearing in mind that there are those two wildly disparate views about how these things are formed in places like Wiltshire, where you're from, where do you come to this from?
Well, that's the question that everybody asks to start with. It's whenever I've mentioned crop circles to anybody, they always say, is it people, is it aliens? And of course that was the first thing that I thought about, and I grew up with it. I remember going to see crop circles when I was a kid, and back in the days when they were just a simple circle, and I was just, we used to argue and debate, is it people, is it aliens, and we never quite knew. And then about 6 years ago I met a guy called Terry who was based in and around Honey Street, who after a few beers opened up and said that he actually made them. And I was a bit sceptical to start with, but he showed us some designs, and this was around about Easter time, and he showed us some designs, and lo and behold, a couple of months later, they appeared in fields. and so I thought, okay, well, fair enough, that's, kind of answers that question.
What was Terry using, though?
Well, he was using bits of wood, sticks, tape measures, laser pens, things like that, and a team of people. It's not just one person, it's usually sort of 5-6 different people, depending on how big it is. But actually, the more I got to know Terry, and the more we talked about it, and this was over a couple of years, I realised that there was more to the subject than just somebody going out into a field with a bit of wood. And what I learned was that they might be somebody physically doing it, but the reason why they're doing it is much more important than who it is. It doesn't matter if it's a person or if it's something extraterrestrial, and because although a lot of people have confessed to having made crop circles, and there are several teams around the area that will openly admit to it, there are some, and in that clip we heard of Charles Mallet saying that there is a small percentage of them that nobody knows where they came from, including the very famous one of 409 circles, which appeared in 2001 on a very rainy night, very short rainy night for about 4 or 5 hours, an enormous thing that's sort of 150 metres across.
And these are the things that it would be very hard, unless you had a team of 100 people and some of the most sophisticated equipment, to make by human hand.
Well, with that particular one, there's been a contest asking people to recreate it for a very large amount of money, and nobody's ever even attempted to do it, and nobody knows where this one came from, and that's they're the interesting ones. But also whether they are made by extraterrestrials or not, it still comes down to the same question of why do they do it, and that was what fascinated me about the subject, which is why I wanted to get involved with it.
If you're talking about why people do it, why people, human beings like the guy you met first of all who sparked your interest in all of this, isn't it just to get themselves in the Daily Mail?
Well, no, because they don't want the publicity. They can't have the publicity because it is a criminal act. It's trespass. It is criminal damage, and they don't make any money out of it. The people who sell the books and the T-shirts and the magazines, and the DVDs, they make the money out of it, but not the people who actually go out and do it. The people who take the photographs, the aerial photographs and everything. They make money from it.
I'm just, a thought is occurring to me here. Are you trying to say then in this film that somehow these people are impelled to do it by something?
Well, that's certainly the impression I got from Terry, and to a lesser extent from other people I've spoken to as well. He says that he's been guided. He gets visions. He doesn't know where the designs come from. He just gets these crazy moments, and he just draws them out. He's never been trained as an artist. It just happens, and he also says that when he goes out into the fields, that he's guided to do it. He's protected in some way. He talks about seeing almost like a glowing shield around them so that they can't be seen. And every circle maker, every circle investigator that you speak to has seen balls of light in the fields. If you spend long enough there, you will see strange lights. I've been in fields at night trying to see what's going on, and I haven't seen balls of light, but I've seen strange lighting effects that I can't explain. And I grew up in the countryside, and there are things that I've never seen before. And that's for me what is fascinating about it. Let's get away from this very base argument of is it people, is it aliens? Let's get over that, and let's talk about the fact that it doesn't matter who does it or what does it. What matters is why is it being done.
There is a power at work that is perhaps using people, if we follow this line of logic,
absolutely,
to an end.
Yes.
The question is, what is that end?
Exactly. Is it the Earth that's guiding people? Is it extraterrestrials that are guiding people? Is it just some kind of energy that's guiding people? I don't know. And
of course, there will be people who would say it's too many 6-packs of lager guiding people, but that can't explain it all.
But it doesn't explain every single one, and that's the interesting thing about it. Yes, that can explain a lot of it, but it doesn't explain everything, and it's that unexplained extra element of it that is interesting.
I've never heard this take on it all, Jonnie, before, and I think you're onto something. I think we've got somebody on who was involved in the film.
Yep.
This guy's name is Jack, should be online to Talk Radio. Jack, thanks very much for joining us.
Yeah, hiya.
So Jack, Jonnie, you talk me into Jack. Tell me what he does.
Well, Jack is related to Terry. I met Jack at the same time, and Jack has been in field making the formations with Terry, and Jack, he's been sort of asked by Terry to go and help make these formations, but he's very close to Terry, so he knows about these the compulsion that Terry has and what guides him to doing it. And I think it'd be interesting to hear what Jack has to say about that.
Jack, listen, thank you for doing this. What is it that impels you to make these things?
Well, what impels me? Well, obviously, I've grown up with my dad creating them, so I've been going out there since the age of 5. He's been dragging me out and whatnot, and it's enjoyable. There's definitely a buzz in the air when you do it, and that's what has pushed me to continue helping him. And I'm 21 now, and I still feel as exhilarated by it as I do when I was 5.
And do you feel that something is calling you to do this? You yourself?
No.
But something does. Terry is compelled to do it. That's what I was getting at. Is that?
Yeah. No. It is amazing for me. And when my dad says he has these visions and whatnot, I guess in some way they are literal, but not in the way you're standing there and then you can see some crazy stuff coming at you or anything.
Right, so some of our dads take us to see football, and some of our dads take us to make crop circles. Have you ever been caught, the pair of you? Ever been caught in the act?
Jeez, no, not caught, so to speak. But yeah, well, obviously we've had moments where we've had to duck while the farmer's going around the edge of the field with his big light and whatnot, and there was this one particular time where we went in there to finish one, because sometimes they do take more than one night, especially when we have a lack of team, and there were some guys meditating in it and whatnot, and all we said to them was, we're here to finish, you can watch if you want, but yeah, that was only the one time.
All right, now we have to say, because we're on the radio here, that this is an illegal activity. It is called trespass, and we are not advocating that if you're listening to this right now, hey, you go and do it, because that's not what this is about. But here is a guy who has been involved in this, telling us his story. Some of these patterns, though, are so ornate. I couldn't even look. I was rubbish at art at school. I couldn't even begin to do them. So I'm full of admiration for people who can make these ornate things. How on earth do you start to do one of these things?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's meant that my dad was rubbish at art in school. You know.
So
seriously,
right.
And,
so something is making him better at art than he and I are.
Yeah, well, you know, it's like even I don't really get the technicalities of it totally. I mean, I can go out there and he can tell me what area needs pressing down, so to speak, and then I can go and do that.
So
easily,
something,
like,
what you're saying is he has visions and dreams about these things, that something gives him a blueprint, and then he goes and executes this blueprint. Yeah,
no, that pretty much sums it up.
All right, Jack, hold that thought, stay right there. Okay. I'm starting to understand this now, Jonnie. But how did you come to make a film about this?
It was just, I've been making films with a team of people for a number of years, and I really felt that there was something in it, and that there was a story to be told. I mean, there's so many documentaries around, but nobody'd ever made what's essentially a fictional film, but based or a factual, a narrative film based on it. And I just thought that there was a really interesting story there, and it's one that that needed to be told.
And we have to say that Jack and his dad are by no means alone.
No, not at all. And the film is, let's make one thing clear: it's not a biopic, and it's not a documentary. And some people have,
and it's not a recruiting tool.
No, not at all. And some people have been on social media saying, it's they don't believe these guys, and we shouldn't be making a film about them, things like that. But it's not. Let's get it clear: it's not a documentary. It's not a biopic. It is based on their experiences, but it's also based on the experiences of a lot of other people as well. And it's again, the story is a bit bigger than just one person being compelled to go into a field and do it.
We've got a couple of audio clips. Now, one of the things that I know, having done quite a few interviews about crop circles over the years with various people who've got various takes on it, is that the physical properties or the scientific properties, the physiological, whatever, the physics properties of the crops within the crop circle differ from crops which have been untouched. Nobody can quite explain that. There are various effects, radiation effects and electromagnetism effects. And I think we've got a clip from the movie here of a man talking about the electric waves within one field.
I'm measuring the EM, the electromagnetic energy radiation coming from the field. After a crop circle appears, we find the levels increase.
What causes that increase?
Yeah, now that we don't know. But the increase is pretty consistent across all genuine formations. It's one of the ways we differentiate from the hoaxes.
The hoaxes? But this one's genuine, isn't it?
Oh, this one's far too complex to be a hoax. No, there's no way this one's man-made. Definitely extraterrestrial origin.
Well, he sounds very confident about that, Jonnie.
Well, actually, that's not part of the documentary side of it. That's actually an actor playing a character, a very, very good actor called John Campling, who was in one of the Harry Potter films. Actually.
Okay, but representing
but playing
a real person.
Yeah, playing people, representing people who do go into into fields with a lot of equipment to do their research. So there are a lot of people, who go to Wiltshire every year. Some people go just. It's almost like a tourist thing. Well, some people go on holiday, but other people go with a lot of equipment to do experiments. As you say, things do change, and it doesn't matter whether it's a formation that we don't know where it's come from, or it's a formation that we do know where it's come from. Because there was a few years ago, some people were paid to put a formation down in the field for an advertisement, and so this was seen as a good way of differentiating between the hoaxes and the real ones.
Right, so they were paid to replicate a real one.
For a TV commercial. And so the idea was, okay, well, we can measure the radioactive wavelengths within the field before and after, and it won't change because this is one that's been man-made, and that way we'll be able to tell which ones are real and which ones are fake. Unfortunately, it did change, which means the very act of putting down an image into the field changes the electromagnetic wavelengths within the field, regardless of whether it's made by people or whether it's made by something we don't know.
And do different images have different effects on the physical properties?
They will change the wavelengths regarding the size of it, the scope of it. And also what's interesting is that this area of the world is the largest natural chalk aquifer in the world. And there's a lot of fresh water contained not very far below the surface of the ground. And if you subject water to electromagnetic waves, it changes the property of the water. And so if you want to follow this train of thought, you could have all these formations in this area, each one changing the electromagnetic waves in the earth, which in turn will change that in the water underneath, water which will eventually get washed out into the sea. And there's a very beautiful theory that actually it's Mother Earth guiding people to do this, because it's a way of healing the earth by getting this altered water to flow into the oceans.
So it's all about energy. It's a kind of on a big scale, biofeedback, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And this is, this is just one of the theories, and we do touch on it in the film. But it's, it's what fascinated me about the subject and why I wanted to make a film about it, because it just shows that there's a much bigger subject than just, is it people or is it aliens? It doesn't matter if it's people or aliens. What matters is why. And, that's why we wanted to make the film, because it's such a fascinating subject, way and beyond what most people think.
Because if people can interact with the Earth, even if it isn't aliens, in this particular way with those particular effects, then there is a power here that might be harnessable for all sorts of things.
Absolutely. Well, Tesla took free energy out of the Earth, and it's not an unusual subject.
Well, of course, we know what happened to a lot of his work. Jonnie, thank you very much for talking about that. I want to talk about it some more at some future point. And I'd like to go down there. So I spoke with Charles R. Mallet on my podcast. If you go to my website, not right now though, theunexplained.tv, you'll hear a whole hour with Charles Mallet done from his home. But I'd like to go down there, and maybe we can do a show or part of a show from there.
Absolutely.
And let's get out there and up close and personal with this thing. Jonnie Hurn, thank you. Tell me what the name of this drama documentary is and where we can see it.
It's called In Circles, and it's premiering at the Raindance Film Festival in London next week. The actual premiere is next Sunday evening, and there's also another screening the Thursday before, so I know that's before the premiere, but that's the way they've worked it. It's the tickets available from the festival website. It's or if you go to our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Circles the Film, or our Twitter feed, which is at Circles the Film. Then there's links to getting tickets there, and it's at beautiful cinema, the View in Piccadilly in London, and it should be a great event.
Jonnie Hurn, thank you for that. And Jack, I know you're still listening. Thank you very much for being on here too. We'll talk about crop circles again, and I would love to go down to Wiltshire and experience these things in person, because I have a feeling that as a human being and somebody who's reasonably receptive, who knows, I might feel something. Come on now, don't be so sceptical. This is The Unexplained. These are the things we talk about.
Talk Radio, digital debate for the UK.
Talk Radio.
We'll get you talking.